administration should blow up Discord too.
True.
Discord is diplomacy. Some Discord.
Gunboat diplomacy.
The Donroe Doctrine. We'll give him another 3 minutes.
It's talk about Barbary pirates.
I was hoping someone would bring up the Barbary pirates.
Yeah, we weren't like England and France and paid the bounty. We said, "Fuck y'all, fuck your bounty."
I don't think so, Papa.
We gonna come over there and stomp a river.
And I think we should kill all the shrimp on the way. Slowly, with as much harm as possible.
That'll be long-term burning of their economy.
Yeah.
We didn't do that.
If the shrimp all die over there, they, what are they going to feed the pirates?
Yeah, and I think land boarding is torture.
Land boarding?
Yeah, because they're in the water.
I didn't realize that was a thing.
Yeah, you let them suffocate.
Waterboarding a shrimp would just make it happy, so.
You mean flambeing? Flambeing would be closer to it. How the hell are you, non-fun?
I'm doing pretty good. After last night, actually, I'm doing okay. So.
Did you get some pussy?
What did I miss?
No, the election.
What, Democrats winning when they were already going to win?
No. It's a landslide. Hey, Gibbs, don't do that. You let him have his moment.
Yeah, listen, hey.
Not only, a lot of people overperformed their polls even. And it was, I think it was unclear whether or not, obviously some of them are, New York City's a blue area or whatever, so it's not super surprising Mondami won, but Virginia's, Pennsylvania, they're somewhat purple.
Someone said something about Georgia, and I was sitting here trying to recall, who was the Republicans' last Georgia candidate before this guy? It was Herschel Walker, right?
No, this wasn't a Senate race. This was some fucking menial. I didn't go out and vote. So what you see in these lower level elections is only 25 to 40% turnout of the general electorate, and it ends up being Democrat heavy because they have a higher preponderance voter base. Anyone that didn't see this coming kind of, I worry about you a little bit. New Jersey, I could have seen Chitterelli flipping it because of how well he did the last time he ran, but otherwise, the rest of them were pretty much able to be predicted.
Yeah.
And Jones had a little bit of a scandal, but it wasn't as bad as hiding up a transgender individual sexually assaulting girls in a bathroom like what happened in 2022.
Obviously, voter turnout for off-year elections is going to be lower than the general election. But for one, I would imagine historically there are off-year elections that Republicans have done better in than this one. And
when they had higher propensity voters.
I know at least for New York City, voter turnout was really high. Now it could be the case that everywhere else. The
voter swap of high propensity voters versus the populace has only happened over the last 10 years. And 2022 was the year that the GOP's party size took a lead over the Democrats for the first time in almost 100 years. So this party swap is something we're currently in the middle of. Yeah, so it's Democrats have won every special and off-year election that they were supposed to, and many they weren't supposed to in the last 3 off-year cycles.
Let's go. We can go ahead and get started, but I want to hear what your grand prediction was. Did you read the tea leaves on? What was your implication? You think that there's a big swing coming, or what is your?
Not necessarily that I think there's a big swing coming, but I think it's a success for the Democrats that Democrats should be excited about. Obviously, I'm sure some of it represents frustration with the Trump administration. That doesn't necessarily imply that the midterms are going to, Democrats are going to have another epic, super big blue wave. But I think it's a reason to be excited, a reason to celebrate, a reason to have hope for the future.
Let me ask this because I'm interested in this a little bit, and I have a theory, right? So I think that maybe it's a little bit in line with what Tyler just said, but this isn't even the midterm. This is the off year, right? I don't know what you would call it, right? But it's the not the midterm. It's not the main. And usually in my mind, this is where you have your more extreme candidates that are gonna show up, from either party. You're gonna have your Republicans that are diehard in the weeds, libertarian, or some crazy nationalist or some shit, or in this case, Madani. I think is pretty in the weeds for the Dems. And then I feel this is when the extremists get the power and they go, hey, you should all be more like this guy. And then they pull the moderates away, and then I don't think that works. I think it's in the long term. Are you not concerned that that's what's happening, especially with like somebody like Madami winning?
I'm not. This election doesn't give me a bigger reason to be concerned about that than I already was. I'll say I don't think it's I think populists generally are starting to do better, but I was already concerned about that. I don't have a super big reason to be concerned about that.
You didn't make you
after
more
this.
concerned, I guess is what I'm asking.
It did not make me.
Madami is just slightly to the left of de Blasio, and probably less to the left of someone like Brandon Johnson.
I don't know. Did you see his speech last night? That was pretty terrifying if you're a conservative, like small government.
Yeah, all the cities
I don't
have
even know,
something like that.
A lot of the Democratic successes were in state legislators, and I don't think that those were
I mean,
all populist people either. I'm sure it makes sense in New York City we would see Mondami win or whatever, but we also saw just the Virginia state legislator, right? And I'm sure most.
But he's like the hot new kid. Could you see in
people.
4 years of running for president and be like, oh, he's the new Mayor Pete?
Well, I doubt he's going to run for president, but
sure.
I think we're going to tend more populist over time. I think both sides are going to do that, but this is not super flashing lights concerning to me. It's just a trend that's been happening. And like I said, I think a lot of the successes were on the state legislator level, and those were not insane populist people. Those are relatively standard Democrats for the most part. I would guess at least.
You have any thoughts on this, Grid, before we move to our main topic?
No, not really, man. I think Mom Donnie is irrelevant to me at this moment.
I have one, but it's more in the structure of the Democratic Party.
I have zero interest in New York City at the moment. So
I do like the Peaky Blinders get up. You got going with the tie and the hat and everything. It's very.
I will say,
I wore my Trump tie in honor of our young friend Non-Fon there.
The line between the line between moderates and populists in the Democratic Party has been blurring over the years to the point where it's hard to find a difference between them. They believe the same things. One just has a more extreme solution. They both think Israel's committing a genocide. One of them thinks they should be BDS. One of the other side thinks that they should not exist as a state. If you go issue to issue, they agree. They just kind of disagree with the prescription.
I don't want to repeat the Israel thing again for the 5th time this week. So we're going to move on to the main topic of today, which is, we're going to be talking about gunboat diplomacy. And if it seems
where's my buddy? Is my buddy going to be here?
I don't know, but if I have to back you, I guess I will. But it looks. I don't know where he's at. But yeah, and we're already 5 minutes over, so we're just going to run it. And I messaged him. We'll see if he shows up. But yeah, we're going to talk about gunboat diplomacy. And it seems like we're returning to a little bit of what they're calling the Donroe Doctrine instead of the Monroe Doctrine. Do we like it? Are we fans? Let's start with Tyler. You go ahead and kick us off.
Yeah, it looks like on the most 3 important counts, this is legally sanctioned. There's precedent for it from the last 3-4 presidents. It's, actually goes back much further than that. It's publicly approved. It's looking like 60 to 70% public support. And I'd say that it is warranted based on the drug war. These are kind of Trump's strengths: national security, war on crime, border security. I'd say these fit really well into what his agenda is, and I don't see anything legally wrong with it. So why the fuck not? Why not use some of our military to actually help the United States for once instead of everyone else around the world?
All right. Well, thank you so much. Grit.
Yeah, I mean, we have historical precedents going back to the founding of the country. Again, I love this topic because it allows me to talk about the Barbary pirates and how we whooped those bastards with only 100 Marines. That's all it took. That was the end of that. I think that anyone who thinks that narco... what are they calling them? Narco terrorists now? I've seen that term used. I'm not really sure that it actually applies to the Venezuelan, Nicaraguan people that we're going after, but I don't have any problem with warning them once and then shooting down these boats that are violating our borders, violating our laws. I don't have any problem with it. Mainly because they're not citizens and they're, narcos, trafficking. So that's about it.
All right. Thank you so much. Non-Fon.
Sure. I mean, I don't think that sort of most drugs come from Venezuela or the gangs that Trump is targeting in Venezuela. It seems like if you wanted to get the best use of our military resources on the margin to combat drugs, you would do it in Peru or Bolivia or Colombia, and that you'd potentially even do it with the cooperation of some of the governments there, and that would be less likely to provoke any type of actual state-on-state conflict. I don't think that any of this stuff is particularly legal. I don't know exactly whether we're talking about international domestic law, but I mean, the Trump administration themselves has given contradictory readings on what what it is. In the brief that Trump gave to Congress justifying these strikes, he said the United States is engaged in a non-international armed conflict against these cartels who we have designated foreign terrorist organizations. I don't think there's any precedent for designating these types of people engaged in the drug trade as foreign terrorist organizations unless they've actually engaged in some type of armed attack against U.S. citizens and everything. And in the AEA proclamation, the reason Trump is able to say, Venezuela is committing a predatory invasion or whatever is because Tren de Agua is apparently connected to the Venezuelan government, which if that is the case, I don't really believe it is, but if that is the case, we would be in an international armed conflict, not a non-international armed conflict. So I don't think I have any reason to believe it. It seems like probably illegal. It seems probably not the best use of our military resources if we truly want to combat the drug trade. And I think it has the potential to provoke some type of bigger state-on-state conflict that I would not be particularly interested in foreseeing.
He brings up an interesting thing I've seen today, that China and Russia are sending weapons to Venezuela and radar systems and whatnot. It seems like they're trying to maybe make this into their version of Ukraine for us. Isn't that something y'all are worried about here on the right here?
With Venezuela?
Yeah, you think they could just give them enough to keep bleeding us over time, with their if they have the new Russian air systems, the defense systems, and they're giving them.
Russia's too busy sending those to Ukraine, pal.
Russia couldn't even defend the proxy immediately. Hold on. Russia couldn't even defend their own proxy state immediately to the south of them, let alone their ally who gives them tons of drones and drone parts, which is Iran. So Syria and Iran falling without any Russian help. Why the fuck would they go all the way across the world to help Venezuela when they can't even help their allies? I don't see it as a major threat at all, really.
Are you concerned at all about the potential, how costly it would be for the U.S. military,
No, I'm not worried about that at all.
If we had a strike in Venezuela, let's say, which doesn't seem particularly unlikely,
we're not striking in Venezuela.
Not yet.
Even if we did,
Trump has suggested that we should, and it certainly seems like there are a lot of military resources being deployed to that area that don't make sense if we're not planning strikes within Venezuela itself.
Okay. But I'm dealing with what is actually happening, and there are so far no strikes in Venezuela itself. Now, if there are strikes in Venezuela without the permission of their government, then maybe we have something to talk about.
Hold on.
We still don't.
Wait. One, I think it's fairly likely or probable that we're going to hit a strike in Venezuela. And two, why would we give a fuck about what their government's permission?
Well, I didn't want to say that out loud, but I just really did. I mean, does it matter? I mean, we've got a carrier group literally off their coast right now. I mean,
Which, for one, I would say that carrier group probably is evidence that we are planning an actual strike within Venezuela and not just going after certain.
Even if we were, so what? I kind of want to hear. So
my
what?
Point,
because
are you concerned at all?
Gibbs
was talking about any potential relationship they had with China and Russia or whatever. I don't know if I'm super concerned about that, but I am concerned that if we were to strike within Venezuelan territory, that would lead to some probably not full out war, probably not full scale invasion or anything, but some state on state conflict that would be a lot more costly to the U.S. military than simply taking out a few boats. Like I said, probably
I guess to my righties, what I'm saying is I like Venezuela. Their government will roll over within 2 weeks if we actually invade. I'm not super worried about that.
Their own people will roll their government.
But
over.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's maybe, but they have the same problem it has with Mexico, where they have a bunch of semi-state actors that are the narco terrorists or the narco government like things, and I can see those easily getting backing from China and Russia, and like suddenly those guys disappearing into the jungles of Venezuela and like turning into a problem, just like the communists did there for the last 60 fucking years, and they never dug them out. Like I don't know why there wouldn't be a threat to like they could bleed us like the Afghanis did.
Let me answer his question real quick because I think that I don't have any.
I'll let y'all respond. Then we'll go to Castle.
Because Bill Clinton attacked Yugoslavia, Kosovo, and a bunch of other places. Barack Obama hit Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia, and other places. Joe Biden hit Afghanistan and Syria. There was other instances where Trump hit Afghanistan and Syria as well. There was other instances where Trump hit Afghanistan at the time when he dropped the Moab. He hit Syria. He hit Iran. He hit in Gaza. Like there's a bunch of instances. He hit Iran recently too in his second term. This does not mean we're at war with them. And again, if this axis of evil we're worried about coming in to fund Venezuela was actually capable, why didn't they protect themselves and their allies? They got crushed. Iran got crushed in a 12-day war, and Russia didn't help them at all. China didn't help them at all. Why are they going to turn around and help Venezuela, who's not their ally, who's just somebody that kind of sides with them?
Well, the answer to that would be cost effectiveness. If you can give small arms and training to groups like their little cartels, that's much easier than like
they don't need small arms or training. They've got arms and training. Look, come on, let's just be honest about Venezuela narco guys, right? Like they're literally like one of the last existing slave trades in the world right now. They have entire villages that are literally made to work at gunpoint, and you want to defend any of this? Like anybody, this is insane. You think China wants to get involved? Do you think China wants those headlines? That's insane. That's a reach.
Well, they said they want to get involved. That's why I've always thought the biggest
they would get involved and have all of these people, have.
Well, China said that today. China said they were going to get involved today. They're going to send them weapons and supplies and training.
Well, they'll sell them stuff for sure.
But let's go to Castle since we can come in here late. Right? Thank you, Castle, for filling in for a drop. We appreciate it. What are your thoughts on gunboat diplomacy and the return to, I guess, what we're calling the Donroe Doctrine? And you've heard some of what we've talked about so far. What are your thoughts? And thank you again for filling in.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, are we specifically talking about Venezuela or just in general? I know I kind of came into it.
Yeah, we were starting with Venezuela. We can open it up from there, I guess. There's, other countries involved as well.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess gunboat diplomacy in general, I don't have a problem with. I think the way it's used, I can definitely make an argument about what's recently been going on in the Caribbean with Venezuela and the boats. I understand the argument against that, why we're doing that. I mean, listen, when it comes to targeting cartels and stuff, it's really not going to solve the problem. It's missing the forest for the trees. You can attack as many cartels as you want. People in the U.S. are still going to demand drugs, whether they get them legally, illegally, whatever it is. So I just think it's a waste of ammunition, really. I mean, it's like, going after an ant colony. It's thousands of them. You're not going to fix the problem. So I think we're wasting our resources there. And Tyler, I think you mentioned a few examples of how we used force against other countries in the Middle East. And I think when you're talking about terrorism, that actually is a severe threat. I think that's just a little bit different, where I would understand using force in that manner to restore diplomacy. So I think it depends on the situation. Right now in Venezuela, I wouldn't really support
Syria. We weren't attacking terrorists. Syria, Iran, several of those countries, we're attacking their government. Like we attacked the Syrian government.
But their governments, I mean, Syrian government was also with support of Russians attacking U.S. troops.
Oh, for sure. But
so
they were not terrorists.
I understand that.
Hold on. Well, I think
sure.
Like all, right? Let me make sure that we're understanding what we're really talking about here. These are targeted airstrikes and attacks on go fast boats, blacked out speedboats. They're and the narco submarines, right? They're very targeted on very specific. They aren't randomly attacking Venezuelan fishing trawlers. They're not randomly just guessing that, hey, that might have drugs on it. These are verified, like these are surgical strikes, and I don't have a problem with that. Now, if you want to talk about, it's not going to make a dent in the drug trade, I think that will, right? And the risk
Well,
the
it has,
risk
Grid. It
involved.
has, Grid. Did you know what's happened? All right, guys, here's some cool tidbits. It's interesting that Papa Gibbs knows these facts. Did you know that we are at the highest numbers imported of cocaine since the 80s? It's actually surpassed the 80s. Here's the other kicker. It's the purest it's ever been because of Trump's war on fentanyl. So not only did Trump get rid of the fentanyl, we now have the most pure Colombian Bam Bam and the highest numbers we've ever had here in the United States.
Hopefully, we'll get some clean heroin too. We don't want that clean heroin.
I'm
back,
just
you know?
saying, I don't know if that was his plan, but I'm a big fan of that policy so far.
So, real quick.
Okay, wait, just real quick. I just want, so for like most of the things Tyler mentioned, most of the strikes he mentioned to both me and Caswell, like these are things that either we have the permit, like for example, with Pakistan, many of the strikes we did within Pakistan, we had the permission of the Pakistani government to do, right? There was something, like I know the raid on Osama bin Laden's compound, like we did covertly or whatever, but there are many strikes in Pakistan we have the permission of the Pakistani government to do. So there's no risk of like going to war with the Pakistani government. Or there were things that probably did escalate the conflict, like at least until like that got the U.S. more militarily involved. Now it is the case that like, you know, once the U.S. military is involved more heavily, something we can achieve aims that we want or whatever. Like obviously eventually the Syrian government, you know, was overthrown or whatever, like that's probably a net good for the US or whatever. I'm not arguing that all military intervention never turns out to be net good. I'm just arguing like it probably is the case that if you do a strike within Venezuelan territory, even if it is against a cartel or whatever, a cartel which again, by the way, Trump has alleged is connected to the Venezuelan government, that probably does have a pretty big risk of provoking some type of state-on-state conflict with Venezuela. And even like I can see there's a possibility that turns into a war that is net good.
I wouldn't mind a little bit of a U.S. interventionism again, which I normally don't. But you know, Venezuela used to be a prosperous, wonderful country, and now it's a fucking shithole with literal slaves, like literal, like not making that shit up. Like when, and you know, it could use a little freedom ringing in.
Well, I mean, remember last year he was hiring Cuban death squads to go hunt down his dissenters, if I recall. But you know, let's just look at a far-reaching thing. I think that's interesting. Today I was reading was that Iraq had just had a meeting with their Department of War, or whatever, had a meeting with Pete Hegseth, right? And apparently the Iraqi department, the head of war guy, cited that he was concerned about U.S. intervening in Iraq again against Iranian militias in the way that we were doing with Venezuela potentially. And I was like, well, that's interesting that, you know, different regions of the world, they're both concerned about how we're going to react. Is this something that we want other countries to be concerned, like, oh, daddy U.S. might come back and lose the stick? Well, like, what are y'all thoughts here on this?
Absolutely, peace through strength. But going into like what we were just talking about, almost all these military interventions, when Clinton went into Yugoslavia and Kosovo, they could greatly opposed it. Biden and Trump and Obama all attacking Syria. Syria's government greatly opposed all the attacks on Iran. Iran's government greatly opposed it. There's a long list. So if we're just going to cherry pick out the few in Pakistan, it didn't lead to
like
much.
A prolonged conflict with Syria. Eventually, the U.S. came out on top, but like we had troops on the ground in Syria for decades.
We still do, but they're there mostly to deter Iran. We are in South Syria.
The actual Syrian
the troops on the ground in Syria were also there to deter the Assad regime from attacking that little pocket we had, were they not? Weren't they literally trained?
They were there to protect the Kurds, but we were also working with Syria to fight ISIL in the region as well. So it's kind of a little bit more complicated than that. But most of these strikes did not have government support. I just went through the list of mine, ran it through Grok and asked, and they were telling me that only some of the Pakistani ones, Yemen was in full support and Somalia's governments were in full support, but that's about it. And the rest were not. Almost every single one strongly opposed Biden, Obama, and Trump and Clinton all doing these types of bombing as well as Bush.
I said they either had permission from the government there, like some of the strikes in Pakistan. I know some of them were done covertly, or they did lead to prolonged conflict. They did lead to some type of prolonged intervention. The U.S. came out on top in many of them or whatever, but there's still conflict in Yemen. I don't think we have any troops on the ground there, but I know we have troops stationed in the Middle East to deal with that threat still. I know we actually, you know, it's funny, we don't have an aircraft carrier in the Middle East for the first time in like 20 years because Trump sent that one to Venezuela. Or we have, you know, we did have troops on the ground in Syria. We still do. They were, to my understanding, they were training Syrian rebels as well. They were protecting the Syrian rebels that were in the little.
Were they there before
US
the strike?
Autonomous zone.
Were they there before the strike?
I don't know when we first put. I don't know when we first put U.S. troops on the ground in Syria.
They were long before the strikes. That being said, most of these governments did not agree with it, and most of them, Kosovo didn't lead to a longer war, Pakistan didn't lead to a longer war, Yemen didn't lead to a longer war, Somalia didn't lead to a longer war, Syria didn't lead to a longer war because they were already there. Again, in this one as well, we have a ton of examples where that's not the case. And then your other point earlier is, why don't we just go in and work with these governments? We've tried. The Trump administration canceled $50 billion, or was it millions? 50-something million or billion going to Peru specifically to help fight drugs because they refused to work with us. They wouldn't let us do drone flyovers. They wouldn't let military go in. They only would work with the DA if the DA had enough proof to prove that this drug organization exists, and they weren't allowed to go in and do spy work against them. So Peru has been pushing us back and not working with us, and not allowing the military in the same way Mexico is, the same way Argentina is before the current leader was in there. Most of these countries are saying, no, you cannot put your military into our country, as well as the subject of tonight's debate. They will not work with us at all. They are hosting.
Venezuela is one of the worst offenders. Like, they absolutely have refused all U.S. Support, aid.
Yeah, no one is arguing. The Venezuelan regime is obviously hostile to the U.S. No one argues.
And they're working with the cartels. It's proven.
Yeah.
Could I ask a question though?
Wait, hold on, Tyler. Do you recognize? Hold it, just real quick. Do you recognize if they are working with the cartels? If they are working with the cartels, then Trump's justification for these strikes or whatever is not true, because he said the United States is engaged in a non-international armed conflict against foreign terrorist organizations. If it was the case that these were truly working with the regime in Venezuela, it would be classified as an international armed conflict.
Wait, is that wait? Well, hold on. Is that the same as like?
I mean, you understand that we have a $50 million bounty for Maduro's arrest that is effective right now. That's the president, in theory, president of Venezuela. Do you think that we're really worried about sparking a conflict with them when we've put a $50 million bounty on their president?
I don't think. My concern is I don't think Trump is seriously concerned whether or not he sparks a conflict with Venezuela, but we probably should be.
Obviously not. He put a $50 million bounty on their president.
If we did have any type of state-on-state violence with Venezuela, there probably would be some prolonged U.S. presence in the region that would draw away resources from other areas. I recognize, like, for the conflicts Tyler mentioned again, like Yugoslavia, obviously, like, that conflict died down or whatever. There were ceasefires that the U.S. negotiated, but for every other thing, there's like still some conflict involved in those areas that the U.S. is still, at least to some extent, actively involved in. The U.S. is still, to some extent, actively involved with Yemen or whatever. You can say that's good, and in some cases, it might come out that, we might come out on top of those conflicts, but it does lead to some, prolonged U.S. intervention.
You said a greater conflict, not any conflict.
Escalating in Venezuela.
Let's hold on. Let's let Castle get. Let's let Castle
get it. I think that the country is failing. It's to the point where the United States government, a foreign entity, has put a bounty on the president of another country. Do you know how dramatic a step that is? And you're talking about, you're worried that blowing up some narco boats is a big deal? Like, honestly,
I'm worried that if we do strikes in Venezuela, it would provoke a bigger conflict. But you seem to just be saying that we should provoke that bigger conflict, that you just want war.
I'm saying that I'm not concerned about it.
Let's go to Castle. Go ahead, Castle. What you got?
All right. So I just wanted to kind of lay groundwork for where the other side is on this. So are you guys arguing that there's no limits to gunboat diplomacy, or like what would the limits be, I guess, for either Grit or Tyler? Like, what could the U.S. do that would be deemed, I guess, illegal or an escalation too far into gunboat diplomacy? Just so I can understand like where to argue from.
I think that step one would be the designation of a terrorist. If you look at what Trump has to meet with criteria, they easily fit the criteria of being designated as a terrorist. We can get into that if you want. So that one's checked. Two, I would say that I think there's a day limit. I think it's 80 days or 90 days. Congress then has to go on and improve that. So if Trump ignores Congress, that's a problem as well. Or I think too big of action, like sending in a squad to go assassinate somebody at the higher ups, or direct military engagement, since this is more of a proxy state. Mostly the Cartel of the Sun is the one significantly tied to the government, and they work with Tren de Aragua. If we killed the Cartel of the Sun and it ends up being a military officer out of uniform, which a lot of them are, then I think that's fine. But if he's in a military uniform in a military capacity, then I don't think that's
what if, let me throw one at you, Tyler, and then I'll let Gray answer. What if, like, they hire, I don't know, what if Exxon decided they're going to hire Blackwater tomorrow to go capture Maduro?
Like
that-
already in existence.
Sure, that's what I picked.
I think that's already happened.
Bush tried to do
Right?
something similar. Bush
Yeah.
tried to go in and get
Would
Guevara.
that be too much of an
Is that- wait.
escalation?
Let me hold on. I can actually answer that. So we've already got CIA covert missions people. We've had them in there since.
Sure, I'm sure we've
I
had them in
believe-
for the decades, but like I'm asking.
Well, no. I mean actively in there doing sabotage, gathering intel, that sort of thing. And those were acknowledged as authorized in October last month. Like that like they said, yeah, the CIA are actively operating in the country right now to sabotage and gather intel on these narco operations. Now, obviously, they also think that the president of the country is a criminal, and they may be going after him. I don't know. That's a CIA thing.
Yeah, but
Maybe
what if they hired like Dog the Bounty Hunter and us five, and we were going in there with our squad up and with Mule Team 6?
Yeah, they're not going to do that.
Yeah, but would that be too much of an
Trump won't do that.
escalation? I mean, he
No,
might
Trump
not.
won't
He
do
might. Somebody might.
Trump won't do that.
What if somebody did that? Would that be too much of an escalation? I guess is what I'm asking. Because
I
you just
no
said we have
idea.
$50 million bounty on him.
Yeah,
Like-
I mean, if you want to go down there and get it, baby, let's go.
Yeah, I mean, if we go down there and get it, like, is that going to be like World War
I know
III?
some
Do we?
people.
I mean, you brought this up. You said, hey, it's the escalation. Okay, if random American citizens, in theory, decided, hey, we're going to go try to get this bounty, would that be like a wartime escalation? I think non-farm would say yes. You're shaking your head no. What do you?
I mean, if private citizens can do whatever they want.
Iran puts fatwas on people left and right. I don't think that's a declaration of war.
What do you think, Castle? You think that would be a declaration, or like if I don't know, you and me and the buddies were trying to get him?
Well, I think if you could prove that the U.S. government was behind it, then
They are
would
behind it.
say
I want the
so.
$50 million bounty.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If this isn't just a private citizen going on their own, then if it's the U.S. government, then yeah, I would definitely take that as an act of war. And I think too, like back to my original point, just to understand the escalation point, for Tyler Grid, like the people in Venezuela, let me grant you that the strikes are drug boats, because I've seen on Twitter, oh, they're not drug boats, oh, they are drug boats. Well, let me grant you that they are going after actual drug runners to these countries.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know who is on those boats? Like, do we know if they're Venezuelan citizens? Do we know if they're Brazilians? Do we know if they're Colombians? Well, I'm saying that I think
If you're running a
if you
blackout
don't
boat- if you're
know
running
and
a
we're
blackout
bombing,
boat in the middle of the ocean at night, if you're running a go fast boat in the middle of the ocean at night with no lights, and when the helicopter or whatever their drone or whatever they've got when they announce in Spanish stop, and you don't stop, that fits the narco profile and they'll light you up.
sure, I'm not saying they're not. I'm not
The
saying
answer is no.
I'm saying
The
saying
answer
if
is no.
there's a-
I mean, the answer is no.
Well, we don't know for
don't think
sure.
they care.
The
Well,
answer
look
is
at
no,
the-
but if there were a U.S. citizen on that boat helping smuggle drugs and we just bombed a U.S. citizen, I think that would be,
Well, he would be a criminal by
something.
definition.
Yeah, he'd be in a terrorist
Sure,
organization.
but
But he's a citizen. Hold on. He's a citizen.
But is the U.S.
wait,
okay?
Don't we
Wait.
have?
Castle's making a good point. We don't actually know 100%. When Biden bombed a car in Kabul in 2022, I think it was, he ended up killing a family of 10 when they thought they were targeting a terrorist and made a massive mistake. We have to trust our intel agencies are doing their job.
In order to
Well, I
be
was gonna
targeted,
say
just
it
based on
goes back
in order to be
to-
targeted, you either have to present an actual armed threat to the U.S., right? Or you have to be a member of an organized armed group that makes you liable for status-based targeting. I don't think there's any reasonable world in which we can consider these cartels an organized armed group under which people would be liable
They're
for
definitely
status-based
an
targeting.
organized armed group.
Well, hold on.
Not under the
I do want to push back.
conventional international law.
I do want to push back against one of these things,
They're
though.
absolutely
Like, hold on. I think they're just as culpable as whenever we bombed that American citizen. I think Obama did it, and he was like, "This is a terrorist," right? But then it was a journalist or some shit. They're probably same gray zone, terrorist organization and a cartel. However, I remember people were pissed. But hold on, people were pissed about that. Because you're not supposed to bomb U.S. citizens if you're with your U.S. drone. We're supposed to bring them in, give them a trial. Sure, if they're actively out there fighting and shooting us, bang, bang, and they get shot by a SWAT team, that's one thing. But I think it's different than whenever it's like, hey, we got Reaper Prime up here flying, and it fires Foxtrot 3 at me, and I'm dead. Like, I think that's a little different. Wouldn't you agree, Grid? Like, you want to get hit by the Reaper Prime while you're walking over here?
That's why I don't do narco. That's why I don't.
What if you cross the street jaywalking and they're like, hey, get that fucker? Like, what's the? That's the next step.
That's not a
Yeah, like wrong place, wrong time.
It's the next step. Yeah, wrong place, wrong time. I mean, like, I'm with the that's one step towards big government. If we're like, hey,
you do want to make a hypothetical, right? Like, if I were flying my plane and my radio went out and a jet pulled up next to me and said land or die, and I couldn't hear him, and he made clear signals for me to land, and I ignored him and maybe even gave him the bird because that's my that's my style, that's my personality, and he put a missile up my ass, there wouldn't be a damn thing anybody'd say about it.
Oh, Grid, come on. If you're not doing anything wrong, why should you land?
If you're just flying over my ranch and the F-16 pulls up and is like, hey, land, and you're not doing anything wrong, I would have a problem if they fucking missiled you. Yeah, I think so.
If I ignored their orders and they're like, hey, if you fly over this area, man, you're lit up.
Well,
that's a real thing for
the cop comes on my land and tells me to do some shit that I don't want to do, and I haven't done anything wrong. He can go get fucked too.
There's a massive difference between military and police officers.
Exactly. National security different. They don't have to do the same checks that a localized police would have to do with the United States citizen. I'm looking into that right now. The Trump administration doesn't need to prove any of these people are terrorists, except for the one person they need to identify was on the boat. If one terrorist is on that boat and they've made positive identification, that right there merits they're allowed to blow that boat up. If they hit a U.S. citizen as collateral damage.
That's only the case if we're actually engaged in an armed conflict.
I'm reading it right now.
Yeah.
No.
Under what U.S. law, under what domestic or international authority too? I don't know how much you care about that. Could you target someone based on their status as a member of a cartel?
There's multiple here. There's the Article 2 powers of the president. There's the 2001 authorization of use of military force. Hold on. There's multiple here. That's what I'm going to read you is multiple. The Article 2, the 2001 authorization of use of military force directly allows this. FTO designation 8 USC 1189 also allows this. War powers resolution 50 USC 1541 and 1548 also allows this as well.
The designation of the designation of someone as a foreign terrorist organization that controls the ability of the president to do things like IEPA sanctions or like immigration sanctions with regards to that country. I don't believe it it doesn't authorize killing based on status.
Also,
I don't believe that's the case. Secondly, the Article 2 authority it applies when it's like reasonable to anticipate war in the constitutional sense of the word war is my understanding, at least from what I've read. Mm-hmm. There's no imminent armed attack that these cartels are going to be doing against the U.S. Under no historical precedent is the drug trade in any way.
Being a terrorist doesn't mean you're just a terrorist in the United States. They are 100% a terrorist group. They're responsible for most of the deaths in politicians in multiple countries. They are a terrorist group. And
what is the armed attack against the United States?
The AUMF flat out says this permits targeting members or affiliates of terrorist organizations and does not mandate pre-strike public evidence, internal vetting, and internal vetting suffices.
Isn't that number one in relation to the 9/11 attacks and only authorizes it with people who have related to the 9/11 attacks? That was my understanding of the 2001 bill.
Designations.
Yeah, they're no. Yeah.
You cited what statute are you citing? You're citing the 2001 use of authorization of military force?
Yeah.
If I look it up, it's not going to say that. It's for people.
This is what the Trump administration is claiming. This is what the Trump administration is claiming.
The Trump administration claimed that
associated forces of
non-international armed conflict against these people who we have designated as FTOs, which again, to my understanding, FTO is not. It's meant simply to. It allows you to have sanctions against them, like under IEPA or like have immigration restrictions. I don't believe anything. I don't believe FTO designation gives the president or the Defense Department the ability to kill people based on status.
But you're wrong. The LOAC laws of laws.
That's international law.
Yes.
We're talking about this is domestic law. International law, I think, is
Well,
harder for
our
you.
domestic law, absolutely. With the AUMF and the what do they call them? There's a term they use there. Now it's not a terror. They don't call them terrorist organizations anymore.
Combatant.
I'm sorry.
Isn't it combatant? Something combatant.
Yeah, it's
Foreign
hang
combatant.
on. I have it in my notes. I'm sorry. I don't have my notes aren't very organized, guys. I apologize.
Well, I want to do what I got kind of like do this little thing here. So like I'm obviously a conservative.
Wait,
but
hold on, just real quick. I also want to say for the FTO designation under the statute talking about, I believe, I like it's for politically motivated attacks. It's for like armed and politically motivated attack. It's not in any way reasonably interpreted as like the drug trade.
Well, okay. I know that's partially the reason why.
Hold on, just real quick. This is the language: premeditated, politically motivated violence perpetuated against non-combatant targets by subnational groups or clandestine agents. I don't think Tren de Agua or these cartels fit that definition.
Absolutely do.
Well, let me come back to that.
What is the premeditated, politically motivated violence against the United States on non-combatants they've done?
Well, they've been responsible for the deaths of more politicians in every country they operate in than anything else, including natural death combined.
Number one, well, politicians aren't always non-combatants, so that's number one. Number two, I believe,
but they are.
It has to be against the U.S. and it has to be like politically motivated. I would imagine maybe you can stretch it to politically motivated if they're politicians, but I would imagine the reason they're killing politicians is because they're in some way interfering with the drug trade.
Seriously, you're gonna stand on that?
Yeah, like the AMF reading was the original interpretation that ignores all the precedent that's come since. So you're making basic points and ignoring how law has evolved based on Obama actually expanding it to incorporate ISIS, who wasn't involved in 9/11.
Well, hold on.
They're an armed group. They commit armed attacks against people.
So does Tren de Agua.
Hold on. Let me try a different way. Well, I don't want to argue that cartels don't make armed attacks because they absolutely make armed attacks.
100%. Not in the understanding of the law. Not
sure. I'm not going to debate the like nitty gritty of the law part right here. With like whether Tren de Agua fits the same thing as ISIS arcade. I don't really give a shit about that. What I do care about though is I do think that non-fawn is touching on something that makes me somewhat concerned as a conservative, and I think that it's this idea that suddenly the government can start designating those things. It's the same reason I don't like the idea of them going for like trans people taking their guns, right? And the reason for that is because what's next? They're going to say Republicans are a mental illness. If you're a conservative, you now have mental illness, we're going to take your guns. It's the same kind of concept here. First, they're going to say you're a terrorist, and then next they're going to say, oh, he's of XYZ, status, and then it's going to be finally this guy did whatever, and then now we can drone strike him here in the U.S. And like that is concerning to me. And the fact that neither one, well, Tyler is, he's barely a righty. I'm surprised you're not concerned about this at all. Like, do you not have the concern that, like, say the next guy, maybe a lefty gets in here and starts like classifying, oh, they're a part of a hate organization. We can drone strike him because he's part of the Texas Nationalists. Oh, he's a hate organization. He's part of the Baptist Church. Like, bam. Like, what? Like, is that
again, when we're dealing with foreign countries and organizations as terrorist groups, then no, I don't have that.
The Klan's a terrorist group.
Hold on,
The Klan's considered a terrorist group. Like, should we be able to drone strike Klansmen in the United States?
Are they considered a terrorist group?
I think they are considered.
I think they're considered a domestic one, right?
The AUMF legally does not require the terrorist attacks to be armed against the United States.
All right, well, let's pick the Aryan Brotherhood then, because they are an international one.
All right, no, I have that. So if that were the case, why are we not drone striking Antifa?
I mean, that's a good question. That's why I'm concerned.
Domestic versus foreign. It's only foreign terrorists. These are domestic terrorists.
Hold on. What's the step? If China
designated a terrorist organization,
and if we find out China's paying them, okay, cool. Now they're a foreign terrorist organization. Are we going to start?
Oh no, that's not how that works. That's not how that works. They live in the United States under U.S. citizens.
Killing them based on status.
That's the point.
Status, not they're actually posing against some imminent threat via an armed attack to the U.S. just for the status being a member of Antifa or being a member of the cartel.
Suddenly we find out Russia and China are funding Antifa, and now they're foreign status, and we decide.
It doesn't matter.
I understand. I got what you're saying. So if Antifa gets on a boat and drives up the Mississippi River armed with a bunch of, I mean, obviously they're already going to have drugs because they're Antifa, but
Sure.
But with with whatever their little concrete milkshakes or whatever the fuck they'd call them, if they drive up the river, should we do we get to airstrike those guys then?
No, you would not get airstrike those in my situation. You'd probably
You know
have to
why?
send
Do you know why?
Well, because I don't want status being the reason why we're getting drone striked in America.
Right. But at that point they're armed in conflict. So
Yeah.
But do you know why we wouldn't do that?
Well, hopefully because we haven't deployed the National Guard and we're in a civil war. That would be hopefully why we haven't done that yet.
Well, I mean, it's because they're not a foreign terrorist organization.
Yeah, but they are. But if Russia or China's funding them, what's the difference? If
I mean, if you can prove that they're Russian, then sure.
Yeah, but they're like the old people that are okay. Like this is my point. Let's say like we
You're
find out.
gonna have to keep stretching because we have.
No. We don't have to. We already
know.
know they got some funding from these foreign powers. Like so, if we found out Antifa cell number 36 in fucking I don't know San Antonio, Texas, they were sit here and they were supplied by Russian ops and Russian agents, and they got the weapons, and they were sit here and fed them money from Russian agents. Yeah, I would still have a problem with the U.S. sending a Reaper drone in and shooting a missile into a neighborhood or a car as they were driving to take out all the people that were all Antifa but were all U.S. citizens. Yeah, I would have a problem with that. That's something our domestic agents should be able to handle. That's the whole point of like FBI, the Secret Service, whatever. I don't think we should be using the military to take out American citizens, and I don't think that's what's happened with Venezuela. But I am concerned about the slippery slope of, we're going to start saying, this status, we can bomb them if they're a citizen or not, because that's what Obama did, and we had a problem with that. And but now Republicans are telling me we don't have a problem with it, and maybe I'm not sold on that. I don't know.
And he also used the NUMF to do that.
I see a lot of gaps in that logic, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
Wait, Tyler. Maybe you're seeing something I'm not. So, the thing I'm seeing from lawfare is that designation as a foreign terrorist organization does not grant the president the authority to kill these people. The designation of a foreign terrorist organization is simply so that you can use IEPA and the Immigration and Nationality Act and some other economic sanctions via executive power. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing the same thing from the New York Times. I'm seeing the same thing from the Google Gemini.
Yeah, there's more criteria.
It is not great. It is not. So wait, hold on. You agree that the designation of Trinidad Agra as a foreign terrorist organization, even though I don't think they meet that standard, does not grant the president the ability to kill people based on status?
No, they don't have that alone. There's more criteria that comes from just the designation.
So what is the arm? So then, what is the armed attack that would actually constitute an armed conflict that would give the president the authority to kill people based on status?
I already told that to you because it doesn't require it to just be the United States that was attacked. It's any of our allies as well, or any other nation. Hold on, I'm answering the question. Hold on, I'm answering the question you just asked.
You said you answered it before.
Oh, no, I did not. I'm answering it again for you. So,
same thing earlier.
AUMF allows us to also take our allies into consideration if they're attacked in the same way. 1, 2, all they have to do is pose a threat to national security, where that's something Clinton tapped into the, 1974 Act, where you're allowed 60 days to go out and do military action without the approval of Congress as well. And that doesn't have anything to do with
military action without the approval of Congress, but it still has to be within the scope of U.S. law, and you have to justify it afterwards. That's why Trump sent the memo to Congress saying we're now in a non-international armed conflict against Trinidad Agra or whatever. But my understanding is there has to be a threshold crossed where it actually, in order for these standards to apply, to meet armed conflict. Armed conflict, to my understanding, under U.S. law and international law, is not traditionally assumed to mean presumably the cartel is killing politicians because they are trying to stop the drug trade or because they wronged.
That's not a political terrorist event when you kill a politician to get a different political result.
There might be.
That's exactly what it is.
There might be cases where you could consider it political violence, but I don't know if
all of that.
When I think of political violence, I think of, for example,
politician to get a different political result is the definition of political terrorism.
If they're interfering with the drug trade, right, or because there's some corruption at the government, I think usually when we think of political violence, we think of a terrorist targeting politicians to invoke fear in people.
Hold on,
right?
what about so Gonfar, what about the one Mexican mayor that just got killed that spoke out against the cartels, right? He was literally killed by the cartel after telling President Scheinberg, I think, to go in there and say, hey, we need more stronger policy on the cartels, and they killed him the next day, right? Would that be political violence or not?
I think that probably better fits some type organized crime rather than political violence. I think
seriously.
I think that's probably what.
Organized
my
crime
God.
goes
Yeah, I
hand
think
in
that's
hand
a
with
better
politics,
fit.
though.
Man. Come on. That is
Well, hold on.
that's
So then,
literally
I guess
political.
maybe I guess what they're
So
struggling
in
with
what
is your
case do you
distinction. Would
kill a
you call like
politician?
Tammany Hall, like with back in the day, would Tammany Hall be political violence, or would it be organized crime? I mean, because
Who is
most
she? I don't
Tammany
recognize the
Hall
name
was
off
the
the top of my
Chicago, like
head.
what Chicago, New York mayors, right? They're run by the
Who is
mob,
she?
right? Like Tammany Hall.
Look into
yeah,
William Taft.
yeah. So yeah, it's so they're basically a mob ran city, right? Like and like when they were stuffing ballots, organized crime to the max. You know, the mayor was pushing policy to help the mafia. Like
There's probably I don't know how holistically I would categorize it or whatever. There's definitely political violence like involved in that. I don't even think that like all of Trent Argyle's actions or whatever couldn't be construed as political violence. I think typically when people think of political violence, though, they don't think of like an organized crime group killing politicians because they want better like drug trades or whatever. I think.
Well, then those people are stupid.
Okay.
That's all I got. If I don't know what people think.
I think it probably better fits some definition of organized crime, but I don't even believe killing politicians would cross the threshold into any type of like armed conflict that would grant the president the authority to kill people based on status.
Political crime. How is killing a politician to keep the politician from doing his job as a politician? How is that not a political crime?
Because you're doing it not with like political aims, right? You're doing it because you want your cartel to succeed, or because they wronged your cartel somehow.
That's a political aim.
Politics against you.
I don't think that's what people typically think of when they think of political aim. Like
you're not trying to spread your
ideology. You're not trying to like enforce your ideology. You're not trying to like
but we've already
cause a bunch of fear in the general populace. The thing you're
What
trying
was
to
the
do
motivation for
is
killing
sell
the
more
politician?
drugs.
What was the motivation for killing the politician that was against those cartels?
You can tell me if I'm wrong, Tyler. I presume many of the primarily like because they were paying off the politician, and politicians stopped doing what they asked, or the politician tried to crack down on cartel violence, and those are primarily reasons. But it's not trying to spread, like it's not like a jihadist trying to spread his ideology or trying to invoke fear into populace by killing people.
Yeah, they're not doing
trying to make their
anything.
cartel more successful.
Spreading an ideology, you just made that up. That's not a requirement for it to be a political crime. You just made that shit up.
That is what people typically think of when we imagine political
nobody
violence.
typically thinks that. I don't typically think that.
I don't typically think that
violence against politicians or people who are attempting to
no, because you can do political violence that's not against politicians, right? Like if I can go politically motivated to kill someone, like based on my political ideology.
Okay,
right? Like
they're only killing the politicians that are against the cartel, that are trying to implement policy that will go against the cartel. They're killing them, and they're not killing the ones that aren't doing that. So they're killing politicians for their political decisions and actions in office. That is political terrorism, definitionally. 100% textbook.
I don't think... I mean, I don't want to say, again, and I said this, I don't even think it, like, precludes the definition of political violence or whatever, but typically people think of, like, a jihadist trying to spread their ideology or trying to invoke fear in people, not, like, again, a cartel trying to make their cartel more successful. But if you want to call it political violence, that's fine. But I still don't think it meets the threshold of any type of like armed conflict that to my understanding, U.S. law requires.
I'm glad you agree with Trump that the January 6th protesters were gone after too hard for political terror.
Let me go to Castle. You've been quiet. You've been listening. What are your thoughts?
Obviously, the January 6 people is because they were in an attempt to like overthrow the election.
They weren't trying to.
We'll come back to that. We'll come back to January 6th because I'm sure it'll come up another 50 times next month. Let's go to Castle. What are your thoughts so far? What are you thinking? You've been listening? You're a little quiet. Share your thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of like a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle is a square in regards to like if it's terrorism, political violence. Like I would say in this case, especially in Mexico, that it would count as political violence, but not all political violence is terrorism. So I think that's where, I mean, the definitions you can go back and forth on. I mean, I think the situation in Mexico, which I was just reading about actually the other day, was political violence. But I think, in regards to the theme and the overall topic at hand, I still don't know how we kind of got on that subject and whether or not that means that we have to go into Mexico and start taking out the cartels. I'd say Mexico should probably handle that on their own because it's been a problem for them for decades now. And I think that when you go back and look at some of these other instances too, there's a theme here, and I don't want to sound conspiratorial, but I think there is an obvious theme of these countries that we are attacking, whether it's Venezuela, whether it's anywhere in the Middle East. And there are countries that do propagate in narco activity that we don't go after. And I think it's pretty clear why. And I think that's kind of like where the hypocrisy comes into play with this gunboat.
What do you think the motivation is?
I think it's oil. I think in Venezuela there's a lot of oil, and I think that we want Maduro to give that up. I think at this point Trump's made that clear, and he wants him out so he can free up energy and lower prices for the benefit of us, which is very nice and sweet of him. But I don't think it's a real reason why we should take out Maduro. I think that's something that the citizens should do there. But either way, I think there's a.
Where do we import from Venezuela?
Sorry, can you say that one more time?
Don't.
How much oil do we import from Venezuela?
There used to be a lot. They used to in Valero, but now
It would be more. What
Well,
Castle's saying,
it's a-
it'd be
it's a
more on the
global
market for
market.
people to buy. Yeah.
It's a global market. I don't know. They produce a lot. They have the largest reserves in the world out of any country, which is insane. But I think, look at China. They are basically the whole reason why fentanyl is being produced in these Latin American countries, yet we don't have anybody attacking China. And I think that's because they're a very powerful country that we don't want to escalate any conflict with. So when I think about this gunboat diplomacy, it's like, yeah, we're going after these small petrostates basically that we could take out whenever we want, but we're kind of, staying away from these other larger areas and countries that are doing just as bad narco activity for an obvious reason.
Well, let's examine that.
Well,
though, real
hold
quick,
on. I
Castle.
want to explore this
Go
a
ahead.
minute, Tyler, because this is interesting to me. So we don't really need any other reason to go after them than communism, and they have oil. I mean, we don't need we don't need to make up bullshit about narco terrorism as an excuse to go after them.
That's what George Bush did.
Yeah, I mean, George. I mean, we've proven all over the world that if you are a dictator and mean to your people and you have oil, the U.S. is we have bombs to burn, baby. And we'll do it.
But I think that's antithetical to Trump's whole no new wars thing. Like, I don't know why communism is our place to start invading countries or taking out their leaders.
That's interesting.
I'm not sure we have bombs to burn either. But
Well, that's interesting, and this is like something I was hoping we'd get to. But so thank you for bringing this up. Is we talked about this, and I've been reading people calling this the Donroe Doctrine because it seems somewhat antithetical to his no new wars policy. However, it very much aligns with the isolationist kind of ideas of where it's like we don't want these other people on our side of the hemisphere. Is that where you're falling, Grid? Because you were just saying it seems like a good point.
I mean, it's a solid point that we would not want to have other people involved, but I guess my problem with that is we've just never needed that before to go after something. Now, it's a good point that Trump can use narco terrorism to go into Venezuela without starting a new war. He's just simply expanding on the drug war that we already have, that we have had since 1989 or 90, something like that. And
So,
Grid, I'll push back real quick because we don't need a reason, but the exact reason we went into Iraq was a whole fake weapons of mass destruction conspiracy. They already had Saddam Hussein, who was an evil dictator. Well, I'm not getting into that. I think that was a whole mess.
Stop it.
They found 6,000. That's how the burn pits were discovered. But going into the history of Venezuela, so what happened is we used to get about 15% of our oil exports from Venezuela. What happened after is Chavez got elected. When Chavez got elected, he was a big fan of Castro. What they did was they used the government to seize private industries that were U.S. owned. So they took billions of dollars in U.S. equipment, U.S. property, U.S. firms, and just seized it and said, get the fuck out. That right there would be enough to go in for us for oil. And Bush did do some things. What happened is we backed anti-Chavez protests. When that started going off, we went in and arrested Chavez, held him in detainment. Massive protests started within the country. We ended up releasing him.
Wait, Tyler, you can't say that's reason. Imagine if the U.S. said, tomorrow we're going to take over any land that the Chinese own in the U.S., and the China got pissed and said, we're going to go into the U.S. and take our land back. That would be insane. That's Venezuela first. That would be an American first policy, and there's no reason for the U.S. to get involved in Venezuela because
You're right. They could say that shit. They stole it.
Hold on.
They
We've
didn't say that. They
We've
said
done
this
that
is
here
our
too.
country.
Texas just declared for Chinese nationals can't own land and stuff like recently. Like, how's that any different if we came in there and seized it?
I don't think it would be.
Yeah, right. Like we're basically. Didn't we do that with
think-
TikTok basically? Like, here's some pennies on the dollar.
I mean, yeah.
Take a TikTok.
Obviously, the U.S. is hypocritical in that we have nationalized foreign assets also, maybe not to the extent Venezuela has, but like, I'm a little confused here. I thought we were just doing strikes on boats, in the Caribbean. Are we overthrowing the regime and getting our oil back now? Like, what's our goal here?
Trump
is our goal
suggested
now?
that. That's the Donroe Doctrine.
I understand Trump has suggested that, and I mentioned that, and the thing I heard from GRID, and I don't know if Tyler mentioned it, was, we're just doing strikes against boats in the Caribbean right now. We haven't done anything against Venezuela itself. So now are we not only going after the cartels, in the sea, are we going after cartels on land, and are we going after not just the cartels, but the regime itself? I just want to know where you guys stand on how much we should
They're one
be
and the
doing.
same. They've already been
Hold
linked
on.
multiple times.
I told you earlier,
Okay.
we have a $50 million bounty on the head of the
You
leader
did tell
of
me
the
that.
country. Like how? I mean, what else can you derive?
I'm asking you,
from
GRID,
that?
if Trump said, I'm not just going to do strikes in the Caribbean anymore, I'm going to do strikes in Venezuelan territory against cartels, or
I'd
I'm
wanna know
going to
the
do
motivation.
strikes
I would-
against the
I would wanna know
Venezuelan
the
government
motivation
itself.
for that escalation. I would need to understand why we needed to do that, or why he felt like we needed to do that. My guess is that it could be coming just because they're gonna find the slave labor camps and villages where these people are in horrendous conditions, and we're going to go in there as a humanitarian. Those are air quotes. Humanitarian effort to free those people, and that'll be
humanitarian
probably
with the B-1 bombers. That's yeah.
humanitarian effort. No, I think we're going to use the 160th SOAR and go in with helicopters. That'd be my guess.
But Grid, you
You
don't
would,
think that slave labor is worth us going into to save, right? I mean, that's not a real argument. There's slave labor going on everywhere in the world.
That's how slavery
literal
ended.
slaves, literal slave, not people not getting paid. I'm
Like-
talking about
like the-
people that are
like the
literally
Uyghur Muslims?
working over the people working under armed guard in slave labor camps.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
the Chinese are
yeah.
organ harvesting the Uyghur Muslims. Are we going to invade China?
I mean, North
We
Korea.
do go into nations for humanitarian reasons all the time. There's genocides in Rwanda. There's different things. Again, Kosovo with
Haiti,
Clinton.
we went into
There's
the-
all
we
sorts of
went
reasons.
like,
we go
I
in
don't-
there.
go into
I don't
Rwanda.
think it's always. I don't think it's always
did
bad
go
to
No,
have a
they do.
humanitarian
We're not
goal
doing
in war or
it. You did.
whatever. Like I unlike Gibbs, care about people in other countries. I want them to be better off. I will mention there's also the same president that cut all the money to or 83% of the programs from USAID, and that's probably going to kill more people in Africa than any of the people that he's going to save in Venezuela from slavery or whatever. And I'm pretty sure GRID supports cutting all the USAID.
Why don't you
money
just
to
talk
China
about
when
sticking to the
people
topic?
as well. Well, I'm saying it seems
I
kind of
wouldn't mind
hypocritical when you
talking
say
about
we're
sticking to
gonna
the
go into
topic,
some
because
humanitarian
we're trying
aim.
to derail off of the gunboat diplomacy thing into other areas.
I'm not trying to necessarily I'm saying if we care so much about slavery in Venezuela that we're going to do an invasion, it seems
I
like
didn't
we
say
should care
so much about it. I said that it is a perfect
that that's a
excuse for
justification.
that to happen.
Slavery and what Venezuela does with their elections usually don't merit an invasion. They usually merit sanctions, and that's exactly what they got. So I wouldn't say that justifies it. What justifies it is that they are directly involved with terrorist organizations. Like, again,
Okay.
the Suns.
That does break the line.
Let
right?
me
Go ahead.
let me reframe this a little bit, because I think there's something interesting we're kind of avoiding here. Is I let's go back to this Donroe thing. All right, so Cuba and Venezuela, they're really tight, right? I think when Peru and some of the other countries are kind of looking to Venezuela to be the lead on fighting the U.S. and kind of being like, hey, stick to the U.S. And other countries in the region like Argentina and Brazil, they're getting more in bed with the United States as we go. I see this as more of his overall Latin American policy, right? Like, he's doing the Donroe. Like, he's like, okay, Mexico, you need to get rid of the Cuban fucking influence in your area. And basically Cuba had to force out them using Cuban like troops and stuff. And then now he told hey, Venezuela, we're coming for you. And Cuba's once again being super isolated again, right? For whatever reason, I don't know why we haven't gone in there and taken them out, but they're getting isolated again. And now he's forcing this on Venezuela. And it's basically if Venezuela falls, he thinks these other countries are gonna fall in line. And I like with the no new wars thing, if someone said this earlier with the drug war, yeah, it's basically a continuation of the drug war. I don't know that I see this. I don't see him if they escalate an attack on the land. I don't know if it's gonna escalate further. My concern is less with non-Fon's like argument about we're gonna fight another nation state, because I think we're gonna whoop their ass. They just won't. They'll be there 2 weeks, and then it'll be like months and years.
2 weeks.
Yeah, max. But then we'll be fighting the cartels and the people in the
Panama was 36
yeah,
hours.
but Panama is like yay big, right? There's ranches in Texas bigger than Panama. I'm saying that like with Venezuela, it's a big ass country. You're gonna have people out in the sticks, in the woods, and the cartels, and they're gonna be fighting like for ages, like little villages. Some of them are gonna be run by the cartel. Not all are gonna be slaved. Like it's not like unless we go in there and like dig these people out, they're just gonna keep crawling out. Like, and I don't know if we have the gumption to do that. I just see this as more of a larger change where he's trying to force China and Russia out of our hemisphere, and I think he can do it with like, hey, if we take out the big dog on the block, which is in our hemisphere, which I guess is Venezuela, then he can force like Peru and these other countries to fall in line.
Maybe it could be that.
That's the logic.
When we look at what's happening in Africa with Mali and Ghana and a couple of the other small little
Rwanda's turned them all to their bitches.
And well, those were basically like Russian run, and now the Russians have been run out of it. And even though a lot of them are still employed there, technically, by whoever's the technical leader of the country that day. And I could easily see Venezuela and a lot of South America becoming that kind of a version of that side of Africa, where it's just a bunch of little warring nation states that just never stop fighting with each other. And it would be great if we could stop that, if we could prevent that in our
But they're not doing that now. Why would we? Wait, hold on. Wouldn't us taking out like an established country be more likely to that?
I think that it would be likely. Well, hold on. I think that's backwards. I think that the problem with the leader in Venezuela right now, being so aligned with the drug trade, is that you have countries like El Salvador and Colombia that are going to look at that in a bad light, and they could start infighting very easily. And I really don't give a shit about narco wars, to be honest with you. But you mentioned yourself that China's offered to sell them arms, so Venezuela starts getting rockets and shit, and then Colombia gets rockets and shit, and before you know it, we're looking at another Mali, Ghana, Goa, all those places, all those little bitch ass countries over in Africa that just keep killing everybody in sight. And I wouldn't want that in my hemisphere. I wouldn't want that south of my border.
So I linked a couple of laws in the group chat here. U.S. Code 18 U.S. Code 2331 talks about political terrorism and influence of policy of a government by intimidating or coercion, or to affect the conduct of a government by mass destruction, assassination, or kidnapping. They clearly fit the criteria of a terrorist group because they do that. It does not have to be in the United States. The INA 212A3B also backs that up and says also if you're a member of an organization that has been deemed a terrorist because of those events, you are also deemed equally as guilty and able to be attacked in the same way.
I don't even think this is not even what they've been defined at. The term international terrorism, they've been designated as a foreign terrorist organization, which is under, I believe, a different code. I don't think it's and it's under the definition I gave earlier, which led to the whole dispute we had over what political violence is. I don't believe this is even what they've been designated under. And then again, I don't think any of these statutes, and you obviously you admitted the foreign terrorist designation on its own does not give you the ability to target people or to kill people in the foreign terrorist organization based on status in the organization. You would have to actually pose some legitimate armed threat to the U.S. And I don't believe killing politicians at other places or whatever represents any type of armed threat to the U.S. That would grant the president and the Department of Defense the ability to target people based on their status as a member of a foreign terrorist organization.
Well,
Status-based targeting is like
It doesn't have
a
to
pretty
be
rare
US
thing.
I guess that's an interesting question right there. What would constitute a threat to the U.S.? Would like selling billions of pounds of drugs that kill people like by the thousands in the
That's
United
not
States?
terrorism.
That's not terrorism.
That's not
but it's
what's
a
understood as
sure,
like
That is
armed
national
attack.
security.
Hold on. That is national security, right? But then you can look at like, okay, well, what is national security? Okay, well then we can look at like, okay, you brought up political violence. Well, I think the Charlie Kirk killing is recently in mind. He's not even a politician. That would be political violence, but it wouldn't be like politician against like an actor of the state. Okay, so they kill like say a mayor or something, or like the chief of police, and I don't know, San Diego, Texas, right? Like, well, that would be political violence, but that wouldn't be a national security level thing, right? That's what like so like where is the line? Like on both of these, the word like it's agreed upon action that y'all are saying, because I feel like the cartels are cause more danger to us than like any of these. I
think the thing is Non-Fon's trying to say that they're not a terrorist organization in his opinion. I think
Hold on, not just in my opinion. Like the thing I'm citing, like I'm not an expert in this field. Like I read, not that I did a ton of preparation for this debate. The
are a
things
terrorist
I read were a bunch
organization.
of stuff from Lawfare
are
and
a
a bunch of
terrorist
stuff from
organization.
Just Security,
matter.
and they're
They're
citing
terror-
like U.S.
They've
statutes
been
when they talk about this
designated a
stuff.
terrorist organization, so I don't.
Yeah, the designation,
Yeah,
and
but
again,
you
this also
understand
plays
the
in the
president can
Listen,
probably-
if they're terrorists inside Mexico because they're killing hundreds of Mexican politicians to affect policy to allow them to operate within Mexico, and that is thus allowing them to push drugs and illegals into our country through human trafficking, many of them being terrorists. I think they caught 20 on the border last year and things of that nature. Then yes, they are affecting national security with their illegal pipeline of human trafficking and drugs coming into the country, since their terrorist acts in Mexico allowed them to gain a foothold in that nation. That actually,
the national security thing, it's not even a thing Trump cited, right? Trump just said we're in a non-international armed conflict against the Venezuelan gangs because of the they were a foreign terrorist organization, right?
I'm looking up what Trump said.
Foreign terrorist organization. I think he just said they're a terrorist organization.
Yeah, international terrorist organization just means not in the United States. International means anywhere in the rest of the world. They are designated a terrorist under the law that I cited to you.
I don't disagree that Trump designated them a foreign terrorist organization or whatever.
And that was backed by the courts.
You keep using that word foreign like it keys something, but they're just a terrorist organization.
Because that's the definition, like that's the definition that matters here.
And Trump has also called them a multiple times.
My whole point that I just made to you, and I was asking earlier about what was the designation and the status. That was the thing that Oswald had regard, which is concerning. Okay, so if it's just a terrorist organization, and then suddenly decide a lefty gets in power and suddenly declares the Republican Party a terrorist organization, are we going to be okay when they start drone striking our houses? Like that's a real concern. Well, but
it's not going to happen.
Now it does matter. It's not allowed, right? It's not allowed now.
Yes.
But your whole point was that's only foreign terrorists, right? And then
because you're conflating two different types of law.
I'm not conflating. I understand what I'm conflating. Yes, I am. But what I'm arguing is a slippery slope. First, we argue U.S. citizens outside the United States, they don't apply with whatever. If we count them as a foreign terrorist organization person, we can drone strike them. That's fine. Okay, cool. So now we've got rid of the protections for U.S. citizens outside the U.S. in certain circumstances. Cool. So what is the line that's going to change here when they go, oh, based off this legal theory, we've already declared them not special overseas. Why can't we just declare them not special here and declare, oh, the KKK is a terrorist organization. We should give them the same rights as Al-Qaeda.
Because the Constitution
yeah, just because this is from the notice Trump sent. The president determined these cartels are non-state armed groups, which again conflicts with the AEA thing, but whatever. Designated them as terrorist organizations and determined that their actions constitute an armed attack against the United States. That's what the president's notice to Congress said.
To Grit's point, I just wanted to say, if we had a U.S. citizen and you had a drug cartel from Mexico in the U.S. and they were handing off drugs and we drone strike the drug cartel and we also killed the U.S. citizen in that process, then it's hard for me to say that what Grit is saying is wrong, right? Like, how would that not be the same issue here? We would be killing a U.S. citizen in this case in U.S. oil just based on a drug deal, the cartel. That is a terrorist organization. And Tyler's saying it's unconstitutional. Well, the guy's dead. So what are the courts going to do at that point? They can't
You
really
still
do
go after
anything.
people. Like, what do you do when
Well, like,
somebody
how
gets
do you
murdered?
go after the president? Well, how do you go after the president for that, for authorizing that? I mean, he's basically, I don't think there's any law that they
Qualified
can really
immunity.
indict him for.
Like,
Right.
qualified immunities for civil. If it's in his official capacity, then he is immune from that specific charge. Yes.
Well, so there's the
It would
problem.
also
right
be
there.
a
So-
LOAC. It would also be a LOAC issue, laws of armed conflict, and I believe that if you are with people who are doing the bad thing, and you are you just happen to get caught up in it, they don't go after the people who killed the people that you were with and you.
I mean, the ICC rarely actually effectively goes after anyone, but like there's some amount of collateral damage that's acceptable. But in order to be, I think the case for international law is even harder for you because in order to do status-based targeting under international law, you have to like be an actual organized armed group, and there's definitely no way.
International law.
well, I guess
Yeah,
I just don't see a big jump like for like legal theory to go, okay, it's okay to kill the U.S. citizen in Mexico because he's with the terrorist. Then for them to be like, okay, well, the Constitution didn't apply when he was 30 miles outside Brownsville, but hey, Constitution's going to apply now that he's in Brownsville. I don't like see that as a real argument, and like you don't think people are going to use that legal theory to like expand this like further down the line? Like, are we giving the government too much power here as a conservative? I feel like maybe we should be looking at that. Like, are y'all not worried about that a little bit?
No, I think that as long as we're very clear that these are foreign terrorists, I don't have a problem with it.
Power to the government, baby. I trust my intelligence.
You just said.
I didn't just say that.
Somebody just said on this side, y'all kept using the word foreign like it's some sort of indicator. Who said that? Which one of you said that? You
It was
said
me.
that. Yeah, so,
Yes.
okay. Well, that matters then because he's saying the foreign thing is an indicator. So now you're arguing with your own guy.
No, I'm saying it's an indicator because a United States, if you're a United States citizen, you have certain constitutional rights, especially within the United States, that have to be adhered to before you can be killed. United States citizens have a higher bar before you can go out and kill them as the government. Absolutely. And it's that way on purpose. Now, if you're outside the country engaging in terrorist events.
Semi-related to the concern Gibbs has, I guess, which I don't entirely share the same concern as Gibbs. Do you guys have any problem with one, like Trump reformed the National Security Council such that it doesn't really have a legal review anymore? And then two, the National Security Council is no longer even the one making the decisions about many of these strikes. It's done by the Homeland Security Council now, which also doesn't have any legal review process. And a lot of it is, just approved by Stephen Miller. And they haven't even been notifying the White House of certain strikes until like hours before they did the strikes. Like I believe the strike on September 2nd or whatever, like the Pentagon had previously alerted the Homeland Security Council that this was like a potential target, and then the Homeland Security Council decided to strike them, and the Pentagon wasn't even informed until like a few hours before the strike or whatever. That's not how things are normally done.
Was this a strike on a boat or a narco sub? What was it on?
It was on a boat.
Okay, so why?
I'm just seeing staff cuts. I'm still seeing that exists. You're saying he eliminated it.
Yeah, I don't think it's been eliminated, but
I'm saying
what
I'm
timeline
citing-
do you prefer? I guess this is I don't care about this, that it's only a few hours before they pull the trigger. Right?
Well, not just that, right? It's that this is done by a reformed National Security Council and sometimes by the Homeland Security Council.
What's your problem with the reformed National Security Council? Is there a problem with it?
It lacks the legal review that it usually has, is my understanding.
They just fired about half the staff, so it slowed it down.
I don't believe it's...
And that was as a repercussion of leaks. They fired them after the Mike Waltz leak that happened with the Signal chat. They started firing leakers, so that's why.
This is the thing neither the HSC, Homeland Security Council, nor the National Security Council have dedicated legal advisors like in previous administrations.
I think that it's probably cleaner and maybe easier to figure out things.
Yeah, no actions have changed. They're still reviewing legality within the NCS policies.
But we agree they don't have dedicated legal advisors like they previously have, right?
I don't know exactly who they fired. I could ask that.
Well, the article I'm citing at least says that. I find it unlikely that they just
which
completely lied
article?
about that. I sent it in the group chat, but it's from
Oh,
the
I'm sorry.
Guardian and
I
talks
wasn't
about some
watching
of the.
group chat. I apologize. Give me a second.
But yeah, so they did do. I know they cut a lot of staff, but I don't even know if they ever.
They cut the staff in
fired
half,
anyone.
essentially.
Yeah, but
No,
it doesn't
Trump
seem
did
like
not
they don't have legal
fire.
counsel anymore.
The Trump administration did not fire all dedicated legal advisors in the National Security Council in May. However, they did overhaul and did significantly reduce personnel. That's about it. They took it down to as big as it was in
Are we
2018.
citing, is that Grok or ChatGPT? What are we doing here?
I have Grok, but I only have it limited on certain articles. It doesn't search broadly on the internet. It only searches news articles. And it looks like they cut it in half. So that still exists. There's been no legal changes. Steve Miller
So
could
you're
have
telling
taken
me,
an
just to be
operating role.
clear, that there is a dedicated legal advisor on the National Security Council.
That's what it's saying here, yeah.
Okay, I think if I look this up, that's going to be not true.
Yeah,
but
it looks
okay.
like the article you sent is just that this one guy got fired, and now I guess he's claiming that his job is, only he could do his job. Is that what we're saying?
No, that's part of it. There's
Only I
other
can
things
do
I've
my
cited
job.
from this article, but at the end of this article, it says neither the HSC nor the National Security Council have dedicated legal advisors like in previous administrations after the White House started reconstructing the National Security Council in May. They have other, like it says, were approved by the Pentagon General Counsel and apparently like Trump's White House lawyer or whatever.
The White House counsel's office, which has a lawyer tasked with handling National Security Council matters. So it sounds like they do have a dedicated lawyer. It's just not the guy that was there.
Yeah, so basically,
they've restructured how these councils work because usually the Homeland Security Council will not be making these decisions.
so there is a
Usually
legal
there's
advisor.
dedicated-
There's just not a
Yeah,
dedicated
probably.
legal advisor on every single step of the way. They does still go through legal advisors, and it does still reviewed by
Yeah,
lawyers.
I don't see a
it's
problem.
not-
It's done by,
I
it's
don't see
also
an
done by the
issue.
Homeland Security Council, which is usually not done by the Homeland Security Council, right?
That's part of cutting staff is you start giving people additional work to do. I don't see, is there any reason why that's bad?
You don't view it as concerning at all that the U.S. is doing
No.
strikes on people who previously probably would not be targetable under most of our military doctrines.
I don't see that as
the
true.
council that normally doesn't approve them. They're not giving notice to the Pentagon, and they don't have dedicated legal advisors
Well, you
anymore.
just
Even
said
if you
that
want
they
to say
gave
it goes through
notice to
legal, it goes through
Pentagon,
legal review at other
So
points.
let me just throw something.
Yeah, that's fine.
Let me throw something.
That's
in.
fine.
So I was
okay.
talking to.
Tyler.
That's what they do. They cut government.
It's not fine. This is like a pretty
It is
relatively
fine.
unprecedented thing.
The only
I
thing
think it's
you're-
concerning
Hold
when
on,
the
hold
U.S.
It's
when
not
the U-
unprecedented. It's only recent that
It's
this has
not
been done.
unprecedented for the
Yeah, did George
president
Washington have that?
the president to start doing strikes against I understand you
Lincoln?
wouldn't want to say civilians, but people who ordinarily would probably not be targetable in
I actually
international waters,
think the
done by a
US
council that
better.
doesn't normally
but
do
hold
it,
on, let's-
not informing the Pentagon
let-
without the dedicated legal advisors.
Let me just actually
None of that-
expand. Hold on, let me expand. Let
Yeah,
me
go
expand
ask
on what
Brock,
Nonfont said.
Tyler. Go.
Let me expand on what Nonfont said here. Actually, so I was talking to a Coast Guard guy actually yesterday about this panel, and he brought up that he goes, "Well, what's interesting is most of these people running the narco boats are usually the slaves that Grid is talking about. They're basically saying, you go run this boat, or we kill your family." And so now what we're actually taking out, and his argument is, we're bombing basically slaves instead of like what usually they do is they capture them and then they take them in, they charge them with some crime or whatever, and then they usually flip them to get to be agents back on the people back in wherever they're from. And so he was like, what we're actually doing is we're not sending a message, we're just blowing up these potential moles and these people that are basically slaves, and maybe we're costing them revenue. And I was like, well, that's interesting. Is that something that you're not concerned about here, Grid? You just said it was possible. I mean, it seems like that would be not good for our overall being liked in the region if we're blowing up basically the slaves, on these boats.
I've seen no proof that the Pentagon was not informed about a single one of these strikes. A couple of them were within hours. I'm sorry, I was answering that. I didn't know you were asking me one. What was it? I thought you were asking them.
Oh, that's really great there, but because he said that's
Yeah, I didn't hear that.
So yeah.
I mean, it is entirely possible that that's the case, but I find it highly suspect. First of all, you're going to take a farmer and put him out to drive a 1,000 horsepower boat across the open ocean
How hard is it to
with
drive a boat? It's not that
millions
hard.
of dollars worth of product in it? Are you insane? That's the most insane thing I've heard tonight. Like that is
Maybe.
absolutely now maybe they train them for 6 months or something like that. But I'm just I drive boats
How
here
hard
and
is it
there.
to drive a
And
boat? Grid. I've driven a lot of boats. I ain't got no specialty training.
I've driven a lot of boats, but I've never driven a boat across the ocean in the middle of the night with no fucking lights on it. I'm just saying, it seems like something to kind of.
Well, hold on. Why would you need lights? They did that for thousands of
If
years,
I got
bro.
arrested, I will tell you, if I got arrested by the Coast Guard, I'd be like, oh no, I'm not. I'm a slave labor guy. I'm a victim. Please don't.
Well,
shoot
hold
me."
on, Grid.
Well,
Hold on.
Grid, there's actually
doing.
there was a case, Grid, where they bombed they struck the boat, and then they found two of the folks that were still alive. U.S. Coast Guard picked them up, and then they gave them back to Venezuela or Colombia or wherever they were from. So like
they used to
in
do that
that
a lot. They used to do
in
that a
that
lot.
case, why are we not executing the very drug
That's right.
smugglers
We
that
actually in the
are
water.
killing our citizens if we're picking them up and distributing
I
it
don't
back
know
to their
when
country?
that was, and I don't know what the current policy is on that. I know as in the military, you blowing somebody up with munitions is different than capturing an armed combat and then executing them. That's bad. Like that's
Why?
really bad.
Why? This has got to be harsh. Probably you got to lay down the law
Because
to these
there's-
people.
Yeah, because there are laws about in combat.
But these
have-
aren't these aren't
No?
governments. Hold on.
That's
This is the
never
whole.
mattered to
Well,
us.
this is the whole gray area. This is why we can keep.
Oh, that's
keep
bullshit. You
Oh
guys-
no.
bullshit.
We did that. We can't keep it.
Bullshit.
No. This is exactly
Bullshit.
what we did. Hold on, Grid. Why
Yeah,
can we
so
keep?
this is
Why do we
exactly
keep people in
what-
Guantanamo for 40 years or whatever? Like it's because
Well,
we
that would
claim.
be cool. Now, I don't have any problem with sending them to Guantanamo.
okay.
But you guys are absolutely fucking off the rails if you think that if you capture an enemy combatant and you can blow their head off, that only happens in the movies, man. Like you'll be court-martialed so fucking fast. Like your career is over. Like you're done. They will put you under.
Grid.
And
If
you
the
might end up
president,
in
if the
Guantanamo.
president's mission is to send a message to these drug cartels, and then we're saying, yeah, if we capture you, though, we're gonna give you back. We're just gonna send you on your way back to your country.
I don't
know
know
how
they'll
that
do
solves
that
the
now.
problem.
We don't do that. We put them in El Salvador. They're in
We
all
don't,
the
but we did,
Nicaragua was in El
Tyler.
Salvador.
Yeah, but Tyler, we did. We took the Coast Guard grabbed those two folks, and then we extradited them back
They did that
to their
recently.
country, their home country.
Yeah, but
recently.
Venezuela isn't accepting any of the people that we arrest and try to send back. Most of them went to El Salvador.
No, I think it was. I think they were
Venezuela-
Colombians, but
Colombia is working with us. Panama's working with us, and a couple other countries. What we do is we send them back with all of the legal documentation and hope that country, if they're working with us, will put them in jail as well. Or
Wait,
go
Tyler,
against them.
who are you saying Venezuela's not accept? My understanding is that Venezuela has accepted deportees even from non-Venezuelan countries.
I was under the understanding, and I can look it up again, that Venezuela
I
was
think they
not
were,
taking
and then
back
they weren't.
their
I
TDA.
forget
Yeah,
what they
and that's
said.
why they had
might
to
not
go to
have-
El.
They might not accept some people who've been charged or whatever, but I thought they accepted a number of deportees at the very least. Also,
but
Tyler,
back to
can we
my-
agree it's a little? Can we just real quick? You claim to be left leaning. Can we agree it's a little fucked up to send people to Sakat? Can we just like that's a little fucked?
Garcia, I think, is the only one that fit the criteria of that being fucked. All the rest were vetted enough to be Trinidad members. Even he was.
Well, I think there are definitely people who were deported as Sakat who were not, beyond a Gregor Garcia who probably, did not withstand proper due process as the
Yeah, I
Supreme
think there
Court
was like
even
a
said
hairdresser
after.
we sent there.
The only person that the Supreme Court said was Garcia. We brought him back. We tried him. We proved he was a member of
Tyler,
TDA.
so the initial Alien Enemies Act deportees who were sent out on the planes, like 200 of them or whatever, many of them were sent to Sakat. Afterwards, there was a Supreme Court ruling, I think JJG v. Trump, that said, in the future, you have to grant immigrants more due process. You have to allow them to dispute whether they are actually deportable alien enemies. Now, if you want to say technically the Supreme Court ruling there didn't apply retroactively to all those immigrants, sure, but can we? I just want from your basic left leaning moral
What does this have to
intuitions.
do with narco boats getting blown out of the water?
I just wanted to see if Tyler.
If
would
somebody can
concede
show
that.
me
It's a little-
somebody that was unjustly sent down there like Garcia, I would side with that. I thought Garcia should have came
Well,
back from the side.
not just-
Now they're deporting
I
him.
want to come back to what Grid said though, which was when we were talking about. God damn it, zoomed in here. Well, with the
I love your camera, man. I love your camera's awesome. I love that shit.
It's when it works. But what
My
I
camera
want,
doesn't do that. So I can,
yeah, what I want to know is you were sitting here just saying you're okay with throwing them in Guantanamo. Like that's kind of terrifying. You want to like just give people special designation and then throw them and lose the key if we like instead of just, honestly, I'd rather just be executed in the water than be sent to Guantanamo and been essayed and bit by dogs and whatever else they're going to do to me there. Maybe test their fucking diseases on me. Who knows what they do over there in their little black site ops places. Why do you think it's
you must watch some great movies, man.
I do. I watch a lot of them. They're good stuff. But like,
Grid,
you don't think that's what they do in these black sites? What do you think they're doing?
I mean, obviously, the conditions
Guantanamo's not a
in both
black
Sakha and
I mean,
Guantanamo
well, sure,
Bay are
we put
pretty
them,
horrible.
but it's the same. It's just the
I mean,
same classification. We can put them in a
There
black
are
site.
black sites for sure. but
Yeah.
Guantanamo's not one of them.
Yeah, but the same
Grid,
classifications used for both for these people.
I don't think.
No, you're actually exactly wrong, Non-Fun. The Supreme Court took the ruling that said Trump needed to give people due process and reversed it 6-3 on June 23rd, 2025. They lifted a lower court injunction, which ended up being a legal injunction because the court didn't have the authority to do it, and allowing the administration to resume deportations to third countries without additional due process requirement.
Okay,
They said
specifically,
Garcia
I'm gonna quote. This is from the
Bill
Supreme Court. I can link you this April 7th ruling. JGW
Yeah,
Trump
yeah.
challenges to removal
Yeah.
under the AEA statute, which largely precludes judicial review,
We're
must be
talking
brought in
about blowing-
habeas. An individual subject to detention and removal under that statute is entitled to judicial review, as well as to questions of interpretability and constitutionality of the act, as well as whether he or she is in fact an alien enemy of 14 years or 14 years of age or older, and that AEA detainees must receive notice after the date of this order that they are subject to removal under the act. The notice must be afforded in a reasonable time and manner, as will allow them to actually seek habeas relief in the proper venue before such removal occurs.
I'm looking at the decision right now. There was no rulings in August. It was in June.
I'm looking at April 7th ruling, JGW Trump.
April.
Well,
okay.
it feels like we've moved pretty far from the gunboat thing. So I feel like this is perfect.
again,
Perfect.
we need to talk about blowing up boats here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
I mean,
I
I
was
was
just
going to
trying
say.
to-
Putting people
I-
on
that's-
airplanes.
That's fine. I feel like we're at a good stopping point anyway. We could call this a short one today. Let's go ahead and give any closing thoughts we have. And thank you again, Cal. I'll start with Castle since he came in here late and was wonderful. You have any closing thoughts on gunboat diplomacy?
Yeah, thanks, Grid, for the invite.
Great.
I know I didn't.
Thanks
Sorry,
for
sorry, kids.
Everybody does it. I don't.
We look so much alike.
Right.
I always mess that up. No, I appreciate it, and it was a good conversation. You know me, I kind of come in with an open mind, so I didn't automatically want to take one side, but I think I'd probably agree more with Non-Fun on this issue. But Tyler and Grid made some good points as well. Overall, my thoughts on gunboat diplomacy will still remain the same. I think that overall, there are just ways that we can get around cartels or terrorist activity, whether it's coming from Latin America through other forces, whether that's sanctions or the National Guard internally, or using diplomacy to get through these things. So I think when we start to weigh into airstrikes, missile strikes, especially in international waters and getting closer to another country's borders, I just think we risk waging a more powerful land war with a country that we have no, reason to do so. So when it comes to Venezuela, I think it would just be a waste of our time. If we bombed Venezuela and we overthrew Maduro, and then some new crazy cartel leader helped gain power in that country, or helped fund a new leader in that country, and we'd end up back in square one. Because drugs are a powerful force, Americans will always want to use them and buy them from somewhere illegally. So I think the war on drugs is always going to be a losing war. I think we should focus on bigger threats to us domestically, focus on Americans here. And I think, you could say that's kind of what Trump ran on originally. And I think he had something going there. And I think he's started to veer off course looking into these foreign countries and what they're doing, if he doesn't like them or not. And I think that's starting to get off track from what matters to Americans most.
All right, thank you so much. All right, let's go to Grok. I mean, Tyler, if for any of his closing thoughts here.
Hey, I use way more than Grok.
That happened on my channel.
You have seen my fucking prep documents. I was just using Grok for some additional information here and keeping it very limited as to what it could search from. I made it like if we're looking at Supreme Court dissents, I said just look at what the judges said, not what the news says or what Twitter says. That's one of the big things you have to do when you're using AI is limit to what it can look into. But again, I think this is proven that Trump has the ability to do this. We started going into the different authorities and how they've expanded. The first thing we were talking about, George Bush only attacked groups that were affiliated with 9/11. Obama came in and expanded that to groups that had nothing to do with 9/11, and the courts allowed him to do it. And it continued to expand under different administrations to now be what Trump is using. One of the things Trump is using to justify attacking the cartels. In that April Supreme Court case, Trump was providing them due process. The only disagreement is how much time. Trump was giving them 48 to 72 hours. The Supreme Court said that's not enough. You have to give them at least 14 days, usually 21 days. So all they did was tell them, hey, you're giving them proper due process. You're not giving them enough time for this step. Just expand it 2 more weeks, and that's what they did. So they were still being provided the opportunity to appeal. That's all they had was the opportunity to appeal. And they had that. It just wasn't enough time. So no, it didn't change any of they just told them they had to give them 2 more weeks instead of just 3 days. So going into that, the Trump administration seems legally justified as well as just morally justified. Absolutely. This is a terrorist organization that fits the criteria. They kill hundreds of politicians to particularly affect political outcomes in the countries they operate in, and then funnel people into the United States illegally and drugs into the United States illegally. That is a national security threat. Just because it's not a direct attack, just because some people, when they hear these words, think something different, which was the main argument we went up against. But when people hear that, they think different. It doesn't matter. We're looking at legal definitions. We're looking at if it's justified. And again, in polling, 65% approval. People across the aisle like this. We like seeing the military actually being used to make our country better for once. And as GIBB said, the end result is the most pure cocaine, and maybe we'll get some nice, pure, fentanyl-free heroin back too. And then we can all party at DebateCon.
At DebateCon, yeah. We'll be doing heroin and cocaine with Grant at DebateCon. That's what we're doing. Speaking of that, let's go to non-fun. I'm sure you look like you had some rebuttals there.
Yeah. Tyler, you should look into JGGV Trump more. That case is like in fucking defensible. There were people being rounded up and put onto planes before the proclamation for the Aliens Enemies Act was even made public. There were people giving documents who couldn't read English and like falsely told what the document said and like forced to sign them. That case is like indefensible. It was more than just like they didn't have enough time to seek habeas, which is bad too as well. You obviously did not receive a proper amount of due process if the Supreme Court ruled you did not have enough time to actually seek habeas relief. But regardless, yeah, I mean, I don't think the case is going to be legally justified. It would have to be like, even if they fit, I don't believe legally even they fit the definition of foreign terrorist organization, because I don't believe even legally political violence is interpreted to mean a cartel like killing politicians in furtherance of its goal to sell more drugs. I think there's usually probably more to it in an actual legal definition. Internationally, that's definitely the case. And a foreign terrorist organization alone doesn't actually give the president to target people based on status. There has to actually be either you can target people based on them actually posing like an armed threat to the U.S. Like if there were just gunboats like shooting at Coast Guards, you could kill them. But if they, purely based on status, you would have to have you'd have to actually prove that the cartels are engaged in an armed conflict. We are actually engaged in an armed conflict against the cartels, which is like manifestly not the case under international definitions and domestic definitions of what armed conflict actually means. But yeah, non-fun on YouTube, non-fun420, Twitch, Kick, and Twitter. I live stream on all of those, but my YouTube videos have a bunch of my old debates on mostly economics, some Trump stuff, some legal stuff, some foreign policy stuff. They're all on my YouTube channel, non-fun. You should go check it out.
All right, thank you so much. And last but not least, I did confirm with Grid before we went live that he is going to be putting mirrors in all the bathroom stalls for us degenerates. I'm pretty excited at the VidCon. All right, go ahead, Grid. What you got going on?
I did not say that. However, yeah, look, so I mean, to me, this is just an open and shut issue.
Wow, was that open and shut, huh?
Yeah, it was open and shut. He just went muted.
Am I muted?
Yeah. Not now. You were for a second. You're like, it's open and shut. I was like, he did that on purpose.
Oh, fucking A. I jacked up my sound there for a minute. Anyway, I digress. You fucked me up. My whole closing's gone now. Look, at the end of the day, we've got good. We're using our military might to do good things to bad people, and that's all we need to do. If it comes down to it, which I think it's going to. I mean, let's just be honest. How outrageous is it that we actually have a $50 million bounty on the president of another country? It's kind of crazy. Interesting times with which we live. And somebody's going to cash that check, I promise you. $50 million is a lot of money. So, when that happens, we'll see what happens. I don't know that I don't know that we want to get into the idea of the Chinese or whoever being over down south of the border. I mean, they're already north of the border. They already own Canada, so who fucking cares? So, at the end of the day, to me, this is just, cleaning up a mess that's needed to be cleaned up a while. I don't know about better drugs coming across, although, from my point of view, the war on drugs is technically wrong anyway. But if we're going to do it, we need to do it right. And we haven't done it right for a long time. I guess that's it. You can find me at An Unreasonable Man on YouTube and Twitch and X as well. Sometimes I'm on X, not often. And I do a lot of cool stuff online. I look cool doing it.
Fantastic. I appreciate it. Yeah, and next week we'll be back to normal political week stuff going on here. I've been a little bit slacking these last 2 weeks, but that's okay. We'll be back to normal next week. This weekend, though, we are going to try to recover from TwitchCon, and we're going to be doing a subathon, so it's going to be some wild stuff. We'll have wild rewards. Check it out. It'll be fun. It'll be most of the weekend. So y'all come by. It'll be good times. Thank you all for being here and appreciate it. And I guess we're going to raid out to somebody. Let's see who's on here. And we'll have a good rest of y'all's night, everybody. Bye.
See you guys.
Let's raid Dylan Burns. I think he's still on TV. Let me just make sure he's on. It says he's on. Yeah, it was good. It'll good. We'll be back to normal next week. We're gonna be on here probably in about 45 minutes. I'm gonna be back on. We're gonna be doing Arc Raiders. It's gonna be a good time. So if you want some gaming, check it out. We're gonna be getting some hours in this week, trying to make some money because we're like, bro, I'm down to like 14 subs or some shit after fucking TwitchCon and like barely streaming. We gotta get the subs up. We were over like 200, now we're low, but we'll be able to do it. So we'll be doing subathon this weekend to get it going. But everybody go say hi in Dylan's chat. But like Gibbs was here or some shit. I don't fucking know.